We're going to look at how to make a ball bounce. So you can see here that there's a beach ball which is bouncing. You'll see that it's also rotating while it's bouncing. You'll see that there is a slight squash and stretch to the ball as it bounces to show the properties of a bouncy beach ball. See that it's a clean scene with the background, shadows and nice lighting. So look at how to create an animation of a ball bouncing like this. So let's get started. Hi, so before you start any animation project, you should know exactly what you're going to do, and you should have a storyboard or a frame which explains what's going to happen in the scene. So as you can see in this frame, we have planned out how we are going to create our animation. This is step 1, where we are going to make the ball bounce after every 5 frames. So the ball is in the air, after 5 frames it hits the ground, after 5 frames again it's in air, and so on. So the ball is going to bounce for 3-4 times. So let's see how to get this done. Alright, so we are in 3 Studio Max now. What we are going to do is first look at customize unit setup, and we're going to use metric centimeters. It's important to create all the models in 3 Studio Max to actual scale, so all the values for lights and other modifiers work well at default values. The first thing we're going to do is create a sphere, and we're going to make sure that the sphere is placed at the center of the scene. So I will right click on the move tool and make these values 0. I'm going to assume that my beach ball is 40 centimeters in diameter. That makes it 20 centimeters in radius. Now I'm going to create a control to select and manipulate my ball. So I'll create a circle, and also I'll put it exactly in the center of the scene, and I'll make it 30 centimeter in radius. I will create another control, start from the center, which is going to be 45 centimeters by 45 centimeters, and again I'll put it at the center of the scene. The square will be used for selecting and rotating the sphere, and the circle will be used for selecting and moving the beach ball. Alright, now what I'll do is I'll select the link tool and select and link the beach ball to the square control, and I'll click on the square control and drag it to the circle control. So you can see that when I select the circle, I can move the square and the ball, and if I select the square, I can rotate the beach ball. You can see that in the front view here. I can select and rotate the beach ball. Alright, so what I'll do is I will turn the angle snap on and rotate that control 90 degrees. You can see here it's minus 90 degrees, so it's easy to select the move control and the rotate control. The other thing I'm going to do is move the pivot point of my move control by going to hierarchy and go to affect pivot only and move it at the base of the beach ball. I'll right click here and place it exactly at the base, which is minus 20, and then turn affect pivot only off. Okay. Alright, the next thing we are going to do is we'll select the circle manipulation, and we are going to move our ball using the circle control So we will use the local option for the circle control, so you can see exactly which axis you are going to move the ball, the X, Y and Z. And for the rotate control we are going to use gimbal. Alright, so you will know exactly which axis you are rotating the rotate control. So you can see the move control is local for our move control, and the rotate control is gimbal for the square control. So rotate gimbal, move local, and local for move, and rotate is going to be gimbal. What we will do is we will go to hierarchy, link info, and we will disable rotate for our move tool, so we will not be able to rotate, and we'll select the rotate control and disable move and scale, so we can only rotate. Okay, just so that we don't move accidentally or rotate accidentally the controls that we don't want them to. Alright, so the process of creating controls for manipulating your objects is called rigging. So our rig for the ball is ready. The next thing we're going to do is add material for the ball. So you can see that the ball is rotating and it looks like a beach ball. So we'll use the shortcut key M for material editor. Drag a standard material, select the ball, right click and assign material to the selection, double click the material, and the diffuse value will add a checker, and you click on this button so you can see the checker pattern. Double click on checker and tile it 2 times, or 3 times. Okay, and you can change the colors if you want. Okay, so this time when you rotate, you can see that rotation. Now we will add, I'll show you how to create a texture for a beach ball later on, but this is good for now. The next step we're going to do is rename all the objects. We'll select the ball and name it beach ball. Select the beach ball control, beach ball move, and I'll select the square and name it beach ball rotate. Okay, it's always a good idea to name all your objects. Soon you will have many objects, and it's important to identify each object with a relevant name. We'll also create a plane for our ball to bounce on, and I'll name this one ground. Again, I will make sure that the values are all 0, which they are. Alright, so I will change the color of my ground to say brown color, and I will move my beach ball.
Are you recording?
Yeah. Alright, so now we are ready to animate. What we will do is turn the auto key on. We'll look at our plate, and we'll see that the ball is in air at 0, hits the ground at 5, 10, 15, and so on. So what I will do is I will start from -5 so that the ball starts from the ground. It's always a good idea to have some animation before where you actually want it to, and some animation after when the ball stops. So we'll add some frames before 0 and some frames after 35. So to do that, I will hit Ctrl Alt and drag, go to -5, and at 5 the ball hits the ground. Okay, and if I right click my control, go to object properties, I will turn on trajectories, so you can see how the ball is traveling, and at -5 the ball will be on the ground here. Okay, so you can right click and that's why it's not showing. It's touching the ground here. I'll turn this to view to get the idea. So this is 0, and I'll turn this key mode toggle so you can jump from keyframe to keyframe. Next keyframe everything is 0, next keyframe is not 0, so we'll make this 0. So we got our first animation. So again, after 10 frames the ball is in the air, after 15 the ball hits the ground. Again make this 0. Frame number 20, the ball is in the air again. Frame number 25, the ball hits the ground. Okay, now make it 0. At 35, 30, the ball is in the air again, very slightly. And 35, the ball hits the ground again. And at 40 the ball will move forward. Alright, so we will Control Alt move back to 0. So make sure that our animation starts from 0. Okay, and goes on till 40. So select the perspective view and hit the play button to see how the ball is bouncing, and you can see that your ball is bouncing. Now if you look at the plate again, you'll see that every time the distance traveled by the ball is less, and also every time the ball is bouncing in air lesser because of friction, it loses its energy. So we did get that, but the distance, we can work on that. So what we can do is select the control, go to graph editor, track view, curve editor. So you will see a few curves here. For our position, so if you look at the Z position, that is how the ball is bouncing up and down. Then the Y position, Y position, we don't have any animation in the Y position, so you get a straight line. Then you have the X position, which shows the movement of the ball in the X-axis. So what we can do here is we can delete all these intermediate keys, so it's a straight line, and you can see what happens here. So I'll drag this up like this. So this is, the ball is traveling far, so the distance is more, and here the distance is less. Alright, so you can see here in the front view, my ball is traveling in the X position. So from here it's traveling here, and it's fast. So if the line is going up, it's fast, and if it is going straight horizontally, that means it's going slow. So if I drag this line further, you can see that the distance here increases, showing that it's going fast, and then the distance here decreases, showing that it's going slow. So the ball is going fast and then it slows down. Alright, so if you play this animation, you'll see that the ball goes fast and slows down towards the end. The next step is to see how the ball is bouncing. So if you look here at the animation in the front view, you'll see that the ball does not really show any weight. So if I make it realistic, go back and play it. So the ball doesn't show that weight, and even if you look at the curves and the curves that we have in our template, you will see that there's a sharp V shape here and it's smooth on top. So the ball travels fast when it is approaching the ground, and then it slows down in the air, then again it speeds up while it's approaching the ground, and then it slows down. To create that, what we'll do is we'll again select the control, move control, go to graph editor, curve editor, and we are interested in the Z position. So we'll select the control and go to the curve editor, look at the Z position, select all the keys where the ball is on the ground, and we'll use this set tangents to fast. So now you can see that the ball is going to speed up, slow in air, speed up again, slow in air. And if you play this animation, now you can see that the ball shows some weight. Perfect. Now the next thing we are going to do is add some rotation. So we'll select rotate tool, go to the last keyframe, you can select the selection tool, and 40 is the last keyframe. So we will select the rotate tool, click on auto key, turn it on and turn the snapping off, and then we'll rotate the ball. It doesn't matter how much you rotate in the beginning, we'll play it and see how it looks, and then we'll make some changes. So you can see now that the ball is bouncing and rotating at the same time. Okay, if you select the rotate tool and go to the curve editor, you'll see that there's a Z rotate, which is a straight line. There's no rotation in Z. Y rotate, you can see it starts slow, speeds up and slows again. And X rotation, there's no rotation. So we'll be working with the Y rotation. We want the rotation to be fast in the beginning and slows down as it comes towards the end. So we'll go back and then we'll play it, and now you'll see that the ball is rotating while it is rotating fast while it is traveling fast, and then it slows down towards the end. So we can further enhance it by making it slower, and then you can increase the rotation amount at the end. If you want to add more rotation. Alright, so that looks good. Okay, so you can see that the ball starts bouncing fast and then it slows down. The ball rotates fast and then it slows down. But if you look at the keyframes, they are quite constant. So if the ball should travel faster in the beginning, and then the speed should slow down. The distance is becoming less, but the speed is not. So if you look at the ball bounce part 2, what we have done here is the ball is bouncing fast in the beginning, and every bounce it's going to take more frames. So here it's taking 5 frames to bounce, and then it increases by 1, so it becomes 6, and then it increases by another 1, so it becomes 7, and here 8. So it will take more time as the ball travels to show that the ball is slowing down. So what we will do is we'll go to frame number 10, and that moves to 11. Frame number 15 moves to 17, and then (24:31). So next one goes to 24, next one goes 24 actually. So 5, 11, 17, 24. 5, 11, 17, 24, 31, 39 and 47, 39, 47, and then the last one can go to 55. So now you can see that it's faster here and slower here. So more frames is slow and less frames is fast. Okay, now you can see that the ball starts rotating towards the end. So we will select the rotate tool, and you see the rotation is stopping at 40, so we'll move that to 55. Let's see how it plays. Okay, now because we have increased the time, we'll also increase the amount of rotation. Now this is up to your liking, how much you want the ball to rotate. Okay, so if you look at our perspective view, we'll check the animation. Alright, correct. Alright, so what we're going to do now is organize our work in layers. So if you go to layer manager, you create a new layer and name it objects, and we'll create a new one and name it controls. So the two controls, this one and this one, will be added. Use the plus sign on the controls to add it, and then you can hide them so you can see they're hidden. These two objects will go in our objects layer, and our default layer will be the current layer. So anything new that you add to the scene will go in the default layer. Alright, so we are going to add squash and stretch to our animation. So we'll make the front view big. Select the move control, go to frame number 0, turn auto key on, and we're going to change the scale mode from uniform scale to stretch. Select and squash, so that when we scale the ball, it doesn't lose its volume and it just squishes and stretches. So when it hits the ground, I'll right click on the scale, so we'll see what are the values. So the ball is going to squish when it hits the ground. Okay, so I'll squish it to say around 80, and now you'll see that the ball starts squishing from 0 to 80, but the ball will squish only when it hits the ground. So one frame before, the values should be 100. So when it hits the ground, squishes. Couple of frames later, it should stretch. So I'll stretch it to around 120, and when it goes on top, it loses its stretch and goes back to 100. So we are going to do the same thing on frame. So at 5 we used 80 some value, so at 17 we are going to squish it to around 85. So it will be too much, so it will be say 88. One frame before, it's going to be 100. So no squash before it hits the ground. When it hits the ground, it squishes. Couple of frames later, it should stretch. So we check how much was it last time. We used 120, so it's going to be less than that, so around 112 I guess, and at 24 it's going to be again regaining its shape. And last time the squish was 88, so this time we will squish it less than that, so something around 93. One frame before that, no squash at all. and 2 frames later it's going to stretch. And how much was it last time? 111, so it's going to be less than that. 106. And it's going to regain its shape to see 100, 100, 100, and the last bounce was 93, so it's going to be even less than that this time. So 96. One frame before that would be 0. I mean 100, 100, and 100, and 2 frames later very slight stretch, and then it is going to regain its shape. So now if you play this, we will go to the layers, hide our controls, go to the perspective view, hit the G key to hide the grid, hit the play button, and then you can see that squash and stretch. Alright, now the animation is ready, so we'll prepare the scene for rendering. So we need to do a couple of things. One is to get the scene ready for rendering by adding camera and then texture mapping the ball. So we'll add a camera, use the target camera, so you click and drag, and then move from perspective to the selected camera. The camera is on the ground, so we'll slightly move it up. We'll go to the render setup and change the output size to HDTV, and then we'll use 1280 by 720. Close it. Go to camera option and then turn on show save frame, so you'll know exactly what is going to be rendered. Okay. Now we need to make sure that the ball is in the picture at the beginning and at the end. So we'll make our camera straight and move it slightly here up, so you can see that move the camera back. Alright, so the ball bounces and ends. So in the beginning, okay, so that's a good camera. I can then move it further so that we don't waste any screen space. Okay, select this and so move it down a little. If it gets cropped a little bit on top, that's okay, because most of the animation happens on the ground. Alright, so this looks good. The camera is set up. Now the ground, if I rendered this, get a black background which doesn't look very nice, so we'll have a plane going up having a uniform background. So I'll add a few more lines around here, and then we don't need any lines here. Keep them, that's fine as well. So right click, convert to editable poly, select the vertices, select these vertices, we'll use soft selection. Okay, and so I'll move this line up, then select this and curve it, turn the soft selection off to get that curve. Okay, and I will drag this so we can see more options clearly here, and I want to use nonce so it's smooth. Okay, and I will move this this back so we have a flatter ground. Remove the edged faces, so you can see you have a uniform background now when you render it. Now we'll use mental ray for rendering, so you go to render setup, all the way down, assign renderer, change from default scan line to NVIDIA mental ray, double click. So we are now using mental ray renderer. For lighting, we'll go to system and we're going to use daylight, and you get a warning saying that you have to use exposure control. Let's say yes. So click and drag to create the compass, and then click and drag to position the daylight. If you go to modify sunlight, we want to turn it into mental ray sun, and skylight will turn it to mental ray sky, and it will say mental ray sky will be used for environment map. That should be okay. Yes. Alright, so if you hit render now, you get pretty good lighting with the default settings, and I'm happy with this, so I'm not going to make any changes. So that's how our render settings is going to look like. To render your animation, you go to render setup. First of all, our animation, if you open our controls, the animation ends at 55. So as I had mentioned earlier, we want the animation to end at 50. Okay, so we have some animation before 0 and some animation after 50. So our range is going to be 0 to 50. Output size is 1280 by 720, and then render output is going to be where you want to save it. Let's save it here and name it ball box 2. Use this for a compressor. Alright, so now we are going to texture map our ball. So select the ball, and in the modify panel add a unwrap UVW map modifier. Okay, click on open UV editor. This is the UV editor. You don't see the checker pattern, so you go here and select the checker pattern, so you can see that the ball, I'll convert this to perspective. Okay, these areas, if I select these vertices, okay, or if I select these vertices, so this area is the color here, and so on. So what we'll do is go to tools, and then we'll say render UVW map, and then we'll say render UVs. So get this image, you save this image as a JPEG, name it beach ball template. We'll open the file. Okay, and these colors I will create a new layer. So we have that in the background. Edit fill, I'll use a white color, and then the bottom area also I'll use white. Now I'll use these lines and fill it with different colors. So I'll use a red color, then I'll alternate it, shift move, edit fill white, okay, move, edit fill blue color, yeah, a little lighter blue, shift move, edit fill again white, move, edit fill, say a yellow color, then again select the rest, edit fill white, select deselect file, save as JPEG, beach ball texture. Okay, I don't want to save this file, so what I'll do is go to materials, and instead of this one I'll go to diffuse, bitmap, desktop, and use the image that I created. Now you'll see that the ball looks like a beach ball. And now you can render your animation. If you want, you can, when the auto key is off, you can rotate this to decide what side you want to be seen. And then once you're ready,